to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Andrew Katz. Andrew is a first-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2027, and he and I recently connected to talk more about his background, his decision to pursue an MBA, his experience climbing Mount Everest prior to his start here at Darden, what he's enjoyed about his first year, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the Experience Darden podcast so you never miss an update. Remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Andrew Katz. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. How's everything? How are you doing?
Doing well. Just one more day of class. It's hard to believe. About to reach the halfway mark, and excited for some time with family just on the other side of school ending tomorrow, and then a really good summer.
Yeah. Is it surreal to be at this point? I mean, obviously a lot of build up to an MBA program, and now you're almost halfway through.
It is. It's very surreal. I remember very distinctly struggling my way through the GMAT, making it through the admissions process, getting a call from Marav, saying that I got in. I remember where I was when I found out I got accepted to Darden, and it seems like it's all kind of gone in a blur, but it's been a really fantastic first year. It's hard to believe, we're a year from graduating, but it's been fantastic, even better than I could have imagined.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, tell us a little bit more about your background. What did you do before coming to Darden?
Absolutely. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I made my way to West Point for undergrad, was in the Army for a little bit, had some really fortunate opportunities to serve in some cool units. The Army ultimately brought me to Washington, D.C., where I served in Arlington National Cemetery as well as in the White House. And it was there that I met one of my superior officers at the White House is actually graduating this year from Darden. So he's a huge supporter and encouraged me to follow the path and make my way here. But before coming to Darden, was in consulting for 2 years after getting out of the Army, primarily in the national security community. And that's what really piqued my interest in defense contracting, and addressing some of the challenges that our country faces with contract integrity and also, national security right now during a time of heightened global conflict. So that's what I'm doing now, as an entrepreneur, and taking advantage of the iLab, which is through the Batten Institute here at Darden. So Army consulting, made my way here to Darden. My younger brother graduated from UVA undergrad. He was in the McIntyre School of Commerce, and was always talking about how much he was enjoying UVA and how much fun he had. And it was pretty apparent. So UVA was always on my mind. It was always in the back of my head. And when I learned about the incredible business program, it definitely was a front runner from the beginning, and ultimately was really my top choice when it came down to applying to business school. So just very, very fortunate to be here, and really thankful for the military community here. Has been fantastic. The Darden Military Association, as well as a number of other clubs, that I'm lucky to be a part of, and friend groups that have made this experience awesome so far.
Is an MBA something you had thought about for a while?
It is. I had a few mentors in my undergraduate years who had served in the military and then eventually gone on to get their MBA, and was, very impressed with what they were doing with their careers. And their met a few of them and their families, and they also just seemed to have great families and great lives in general, even more so than what they were doing professionally. Thought that was very interesting in undergrad. And then there was a really cool moment that I give a ton of credit to. Shortly after graduating, I went down to my first duty station in the Army, and we were all roughly 22, 23 years old. And I met a gentleman in our unit who was a lot older. He was probably 14 or 15 years older than us. And he had joined the Army very late in life. And to make a long story short, his name is Christoph Meyer. He's a class of 2009 from Darden. And he's just a fantastic individual and had an amazing professional career before joining the Army. And it was the loss of a few close friends that ultimately was his motivation and deciding factor. And he ended up becoming a little bit like an uncle figure for us, shortly after graduating college, all going through the same Army training. This was right before we went to Army Ranger School, and this was a very intense time. And all the while, he put in the back of my mind the importance of one day going to get your MBA, and if so, to do it at Darden, to do it full time at the residential program here in Charlottesville. So I never lost sight of that, always looked up to him. And fortunately, he actually came back this past weekend and was a speaker at he had a few different speaking engagements, and was able to spend a lot of time with he and his family and his 5 little kids who are fantastic, who I've gotten to know well over the years. So full circle moment. I've been thinking about MBA for a while. Always knew if I didn't stay in the Army that this would be an amazing path to pursue and really help make that transition to the civilian sector. And I don't regret it for a second.
What is it about Darden that really resonated and appealed to you?
The community. When I was looking, I love this question. When I was looking at schools, I looked at the schools in New York, in Chicago, in Boston, in Philly. And one thing that always seemed to ring true was the tight knit community that you have here in Darden, given that this is a smaller city, that given that, the optionality of scouring a big city is just not here, but the positive, outcome of that is how closely knit this community becomes very quickly. And that's just something that was important to me from my days in the Army. I loved the concept of a unit, of people having your back, of people looking out for you. And I figured all those things would be important as professors and mentors and faculty talked about the importance of a network. And I just figured the type of network I wanted to build was not just one that would be professionally advantageous, but one that would really care about who I am as a person, who I'm becoming. Am I making, people who would really say, "Hey, Andrew, like, is that really what you want to do? Is that really in your best interest for the long term?" And I'm really thankful for friends and a few close professors that I've gotten, close with and worked with and studied under. I feel like people really have my back and want to see me not just succeed but be happy. And those are it's all important to me.
You had a pretty interesting experience before you started your MBA program. You want to talk about that?
I'd be happy to. Just because I would encourage people to take a similar path. I took a few months off before school. Originally, I thought about just working at the consulting firm all the way up until my start date for Darden. But there had been a dream on my mind for a long time. I didn't think it was the right time originally, just given the magnitude, but I'd been rock climbing and mountain climbing for about 8 years, always with the goal of completing the 7 summits, the tallest mountain, reaching the tallest point on each of the 7 continents. And I'd been slowly working my way around. I think I was at 3 beforehand. And ultimately, I decided that this would be the year that I would climb Mount Everest. And it was an amazing decision. So I quit my job maybe 4 or 5 months before school started. Took a little bit of a risk there, but ultimately it was the perfect time to chase a dream that truly I couldn't go a day without thinking about. And just thankful for the journey we had in the spring of 2025. Met some of the most amazing people, both Western climbers and also Sherpa climbers who I still keep in touch with and love getting notes from, all the Sherpa teammates that we had and we got to work with. And it was harrowing for sure. Unfortunately, it was touch and go. I was hospitalized on the back end and was essentially medevaced by helicopter off the mountain for pneumonia that was exacerbated by high altitude symptoms and high altitude sickness kind of on the summit day. And it all started, the biggest difficulty was we were pinned down at Camp 2, so about halfway up the upper mountain. And you're really not supposed to spend much more than a day or two there. It's very inhospitable. It's very Spartan. Very few resources. And we got pinned down by bad weather for about 5 days. And pneumonia just started to make its way through the camp. And it began taking out teammates left and right who were, and this was we were on day 51, 52 of the journey at that point. We began April 1st, and we were in late May at this point, and we were losing teammates left and right who had made the whole journey and had done all the right things and taken care of themselves. And it was just the way the season is so short and so finite and so specific that you just have to take some chances. And that was the chance that our team chose to take. And very, very fortunate that my tent mate Wells, who's now my best friend, and just a fantastic guy who had my back. Both made it, fortunately, and summited and saw one of the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen in my entire life, and got to look down into Tibet and down back into Nepal on the other side, and out what truly felt like out over the top of the world. So very, very thankful, and the timing of it all to make it back safely and to recover just in time to move here to Charlottesville. It is really just a dream come true.
Gosh, that is harrowing. You mentioned you had done 3 summits before Everest. What are the 3 summits you had done?
The 3 continental summits were Mont Blanc in France, in Chamonix, France, the tallest mountain in Europe, Western Europe. Aconcagua is the tallest mountain in the Andes, South America. And then everyone's favorite, Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa, which I cannot recommend enough. It is very inviting, very welcoming, and it's just an amazing international experience. I think for any traveler, I would really encourage you to consider Kilimanjaro. It's just the gateway to all of this, and it really opened my eyes to what I want to do with the rest of my life, which is just be in a position to be healthy, have time to spend with friends and family, and explore the world. Not just the cities around the world, but some of the most beautiful, remote, scenic, outdoor parts of the world as well.
How do you prepare to climb Everest?
It's an interesting balance. It's a mix of strength and cardio. So unlike I used to run marathons and triathlons and things back in the day, and that was very much cardio based and diet, really trying to be lean and fast and be able to go for long stretches. Big mountain climbing is a combination of strength and cardio. So I'd say for the first time, this was it was a real challenge to balance the strength training portion, and also because you lose a little bit of weight on the mountain, it was important not to go in fairly lean and perhaps to even add a little bit of padding, as we called it, and to put on a good bit of muscle so that you're able to pull yourself up through a few situations. There's a lot of situations where you're on all fours, you're using all 4 limbs, you're using ice tools, ice axes, and it really it's everything. But I will say, Brett, the part that I really reflect on being the biggest challenge was the mental preparation. I think that is even more important than being in peak physical shape, was the mental preparation. And for me, that meant trying to prepare and anticipate some of the mental and psychological challenges that we would face up there. It's very commercialized, which most people know about these days. And there's rumors about things like, trash and traffic and things like that. And I actually didn't find the trash to be that bad. And I was amazed. Our team did a really good job, packing in and packing out everything we brought, And, we didn't leave the mountain any dirtier than we found it. If anything, we brought extra trash down with us, and that's what most groups do these days. We were able to move at night, and we moved during periods of inclement weather. We had a really strong team, so we didn't face a single crowd. We didn't face a single infamous log jam, or traffic scene on the mountain. So we really reduced the risk of frostbite, which other groups were not as fortunate with. But there were still incredible, unfortunate situations that took place. A huge windstorm came in and blew away $5,000 worth of cached equipment that we had carried up the mountain and placed. And it was sort of a communal spot, and we trusted. There's this communal sense of trust that these tents are secure and that nothing will happen. And ultimately we had to conduct an emergency evacuation. This was day 30 or 35. Had to conduct an emergency evacuation down the mountain back to base camp because we didn't have anywhere to stay that night. We would have, certainly froze without sleeping bags, tents, shelter, food. Um, and we evacuated during the worst time of the day when the ice and the rocks were just falling down on like to our left and right. I mean, it was, things like that. And then, recovering our gear was a whole nother process, and the illnesses. And so it's preparing for that. It's just preparing for the moments where you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to come up with a plan, and you're going to have to rely on your teammates. That those are the moments I'm the most thankful for. And there were some things I truly couldn't have possibly prepared for. And those are the experiences that I really hold dear, even much more so than standing on top and making it to the summit.
There's also the possibility you could go through all of that and not make it to the top, which happens to quite a few people for a variety of reasons, right? Illness, but also just bad weather.
Bad weather. A number of people, I think we started with 10 and only 3 summited from our team. And we had a fairly strong team. And I think those numbers are fairly traditional. I think those kind of ring true for most companies, most groups. So I'm just very, very thankful. I cannot give enough credit to the Sherpa climbers, Dawa, specifically this incredible young gentleman who, I consider an amazing friend for life, roughly my age, been climbing forever. And yeah, they're just incredible people. These Nepalese, mountain climbers. And without them, none of it would truly be possible. And, really hope to be able to return the favor one day and have some of those climbers and their families, host them here in the States one day would be a dream.
All right, one more question for you, Andrew, and I promise we'll move on to the NBA conversation. Absolutely. But how does climbing Everest compare to some of those other places that you'd climbed? Obviously the summits that you've done and those are some notable climbs in the world.
Yes, no, the Everest is interesting because of the infrastructure. I mean, over the past 70 years, since the first ascent in 1953, and even before that, really since the first major attempts in 1924, these Sherpa families have been building villages higher and higher and higher in the mountains to support this trek, this infamous 41-mile, uphill walk from the airport, the famous, most dangerous airport in the world, in the beautiful town of Alukla, and then up to Everest Base Camp. And so it's just amazing. Normally, when I think of climbing, I think of being remote, being incredibly self-sufficient, self-reliant, autonomous. The whole culture, the whole mountain culture has gravitated, has grown and gravitated around this climb and supporting climbers. And, it's an amazing industry. And I think it's created life for a lot of people up there. And I hope, everyone has the right attitude about it and the right level of appreciation for all these families. But that was the biggest difference, was the infrastructure and the culture around the climb. I mean, parts of the way up to base camp, we stopped into these amazing Buddhist, monasteries, and were greeted by these monks who were just incredible, and they were so kind, and they were willing, and they offered to pray for our safety, for safe passage. They asked the mountain for permission, something that's very culturally important to them. They asked the mountain for permission for us to climb, and I have this necklace, this amulet called a sung dai, and it was presented to me by the Lama Geshe, who essentially is like a cardinal is to the Pope, a very, very high religious figure. That's a few steps down from the Dalai Lama, essentially. And I was just amazed by their sense of welcoming, sense of encouragement, and that they wanted us to not only respect their traditions, but they wanted to teach and share. And there's an amazing receptiveness from a lot of the climbers that I noticed. Everyone wanted to learn, and it was very much a cultural experience as much as it was a physical and mental experience. I'd say that was the biggest difference from that and any other climb I've ever been on. So
you get medevaced off the mountain.
Unfortunately.
scary moment? I imagine it had to be.
I sort of didn't want to alert, anyone of the symptoms that I was beginning to have. And but it got to the point, luckily on the backside, I really struggled down the mountain, down from the summit, made it back down to Camp 2 that first night. Um, and that's when things started to get hairy, and I really started to feel rough, and vision was starting to go. And I probably should have been a bit more upfront. And there were people getting medevaced from Camp 2, but which is very dangerous. Helicopters have only made it up to Camp 2, which is around 21,000 feet. It was only a few years ago that helicopters first were able to make it up that high. And part of me was like, it would be risky to get in a helicopter at this high. I was like, I think I can make it back to base camp. And the next day, we descended from Camp 2, from 21,000 feet down to 17,000 feet. And I barely remember the second half of it. I was kind of going through the motions, and fortunately just following a teammate who was helping me and pointing out the rope and pointing out the treacherous sections and double checking my safeties and things like that. And at that point, I basically made it to base camp, and that was it. And very, very fortunately, a helicopter came pretty soon after. And next thing I know, I was at a hospital in Kathmandu, and just very, very much appreciative for the medical staff there. That was a little bit scary. Huge language barrier. Did not really know what's going on. You know, and just very thankful for that team for getting me healthy enough to travel home. Yeah.
Wow. So starting at Darden seems pretty easy by comparison to all of that.
No, quite the opposite. I went to Darden before Darden, which I recommend for anyone coming in, which was amazing. It's an amazing summer opportunity to study for 5 days under a few of our professors to get sharp and get caught up on a couple key ingredients, accounting, marketing, a few other things before school starts, and it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, that was as much of a wake up call. So. But no, in many ways, the stress I was able to endure and process on Mount has definitely helped me here. There's a lot that goes on at Darden. We are thrown a lot of opportunities, academically, professionally, socially, you name it. And I'm really thankful for the ability that I believe to stay calm and really process and manage and prioritize, which were all things that were absolutely essential to success and survival on Everest. So I would say there's a ton of correlation, and I'm just thankful for how close in proximity the start of Darden was to this adventure on Everest.
Yeah, I'm curious. As you kind of thought about the biggest adjustments for you in that first year, what were some of the things that jumped out to you? Obviously, it sounds like maybe managing all the things that are coming your way, but were there other things?
I think so. I think for me, I'm one of the older students, I think, in my class, or towards the top end of the age bracket. So getting back into school, it had been, I think, 7 or 8 years since I graduated from undergrad. So I'd say getting back in the academic swing of things, the studying, the time management, in consulting, my evenings, when I was done with work, I was pretty much done. And in the Army, when I was done with work, I was pretty much done for the evening. It felt like it never ended in the beginning of Darden. Going home just meant doing more work, studying, setting up calls, taking calls. That took some adjusting. That took some getting used to. But luckily, surrounded by brilliant, talented, diverse group of classmates and friends, and specifically the learning team here at Darden. That is one of my favorite aspects of the first year, is this amazing tradition that Darden has to put you in a random and diverse group of students, roughly 6 to 7, who you work on your assignments with. You help one another. You share some of the load when possible. But more importantly, they're just people that have your back, and they may not necessarily be the friends you choose. They're kind of the friends you're given, and it's kind of an intense operation. But the school invests in these teams, and I was thankful for launch week, which is one of the first weeks of the year, to go out and test some of our norms that we had generated as a team, and test some of these systems that we had talked about putting in place Um, yeah, that was something that made this year much more feasible. So very thankful, and went to an end of year dinner with my learning team last night, actually. So we're all still friends today.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your learning team? Maybe the mix of people or how y'all work together, some of the norms you put in place?
Yeah, mix of male and female, American and international, different career interests was interesting. So in the fall, some of the hopeful investment bankers and consultants were really focused on that, and were a little less. I'll say they had less time to focus on homework and contributing to our team, and it was really cool to see some of the people with other career aspirations step up, in their absence, and say, "Hey, I can do that, or I can help you out, or I got your back." But then to see those people when they did have time, when their priorities shifted, they shifted back into the team. It was interesting to see, like, hey, would this really happen? Like, will the pendulum actually swing back? And sure enough, and I think that's one of the distinguishing factors of our team, because not every team stays together. We discussed this last night, and some percentage of these learning teams don't make it. They don't see eye to eye, and ultimately it's not helpful to each of the members, and they elect to collapse or discontinue meeting. Um, our team stayed together the whole time, and it wasn't always easy. I'll say that we did ultimately part ways with one teammate. It was, I think, the best for them. I think it was the best for our team. We're all still friendly with that individual. Um, but it matters. It really does matter. The team culture really matters, because there is just too much homework. There's too many assignments to do it all yourself. I hope UVA is okay with me sharing that attitude, but I do believe there is just too much put on your plate for any one person to do everything themselves and recruit. And I think the learning team makes that possible. And it was just a really good exercise on taking a whole lot of work, a whole number of tasks, and getting it done on time to standard, for some higher purpose. And that's, for everyone's learning, for everyone's mental health, for everyone's well-being, and then ultimately to support everyone's career journey, giving everyone the freedom to prepare and execute all their calls and coffee chats and recruiting interviews. So yeah, that's just an amazing transition. That was a huge help for me getting back into the academics. I'll say that.
Well, that certainly aligns with what we tell prospective students, that Darden is not an individual pursuit. As learning here is a team sport, you should not be trying to do it by yourself. There is too much to do. And part of that's just the nature of the expectation in class and how you're expected to show up and be prepared to contribute and engage in a conversation. And that's why you have a learning team and structures like that in place. And we had a conversation about tutoring and all these other resources that are available. Obviously, each section also will have some resources that students can leverage as they go through the quarter on the academic front. But yeah, not intended to be done by yourself. That would be making Darden harder than it needs to be. And why would you do it that way? You've got all these talented people around you.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that, there's not much in our professional careers that we'll ever truly have to do alone. I know it's important growing up, elementary, middle, high school, to really be able to like gain those fundamental skills. But I'm hoping the professional, direction that I'm heading, that I'm never truly alone on something. I know I'll have individual tasks, but at the end of the day, like, we'll always be a part of a team. Even as an entrepreneur, I have a team that I rely on heavily. And yeah, no, the learning team is fantastic.
Well, Andrew, you mentioned your entrepreneurial interest a few times. Now, tell us a little bit more about your startup.
Yeah, so my brother's my co-founder. So we're dual UVA, and he went on to investment banking afterward. So he's got the finance side, and I talked a little bit about my background in national security and in government contracting, and that's where we're fusing to form Catalyze LLC. It is a IT staffing company for the national security community, and we're looking to help with all of the modernization efforts that are happening across the national security community, places like Langley and Fort Meade and some of the other key agencies that are care about our interests, both domestically and abroad, are going through massive IT modernization efforts right now. There's also a big movement out in and out of the government of personnel. There was a big retirement, early retirement movement at the beginning of this presidential administration. So these agencies are in need of talented, cleared personnel, highly credentialed technologists in software development, cybersecurity, and data sciences to come in and handle these tough jobs and ultimately get our systems to the point where they're reliable, they're resilient, and they're effective in not only keeping our service members safe, but also preventing the need for boots on the ground in certain parts of the world. So we've got the people. We're looking for the right customers, the right mid-sized prime contractors located in the DC area to come on as pure subcontractors to bolster staff, with augmented staff who are knowledgeable, who are appropriately cleared, and ultimately who are patriotic, who really care about the mission. And we're everything we do is to create a sense of community on our team, and in hopes that this will feel like a unit. We do have a lot of military veterans and a lot of government, professionals who are leaving the government world to come to the private sector. We really want everything that we do and provide to our employees to feel like a unit, to feel like a family, in a world where a lot of big corporations just don't have that interest or ability to treat employees as they want. So that's where we are. That's why we're building Catalyze LLC. And I'm excited this summer to take advantage of all the entrepreneurial resources here at Darden, primarily through Darden's Batten Institute for Entrepreneurship and their iLab, or the incubator for startups here at Darden. I'll be a part of a cohort of founders this summer. There's a lot of amazing training opportunities for us that are scheduled this summer here at Charlottesville. But another reason I picked UVA and Darden is the proximity to Washington, D.C. So I'll be making that famed drive up Seminole Trail and up to D.C. quite a bit this summer. And I'm really looking forward to be able to spend some full time, or full amount of my time for the first time on this venture.
Yeah, that's very cool. Did you expect that you would pursue a startup as part of your Darden experience?
I did. I kind of the reason I went into consulting first before coming here, a lot of military veterans come right from their time in service to pursue their MBA. I had a mentor who was at another MBA program, and he knew about my entrepreneurial interests and said, "Hey, I think it might be beneficial to go out into the real world and learn a little bit about, the problem you'd like to solve," which I always knew was something government contract related. And he was right. And fortunately, in those 2 years in consulting, I found a niche and a need that I think I'm equipped to solve, especially with the help of my brother, Matthew. So I definitely came into Darden thinking this was plan A.
All right. That's very cool, and great to hear that you are going to be part of the iLab cohort this summer, and also get to spend some time in the DC area. Other things that you're involved with here at Darden, any clubs or organizations you would want to mention?
Absolutely. I'd love to mention the Darden Outdoors Club. I think maybe aside from Tuck, I think we have the greatest access to the outdoors of any top MBA program in the country, whether that's here in Charlottesville or Roslyn. We have not one, but two, but three national parks within a 4.5 hour drive. And the surrounding area is fantastic. So I'm really excited I just stepped into the role leading the Darden Outdoors Club here. We've already done a ton. We have an amazing board, and everyone can expect amazing ski trips, hiking trips, backpacking trips, a teammate's working on the whitewater rafting trip. But ultimately, Darden's hard. MBA is hard. Life is hard. And the thing I love about the Darden Outdoors Club, the DOC, is this is, in my opinion, the best outlet. This is the best source of relaxation, of a social environment to meet your classmates and network in relaxed environments. And so we're very excited, have an amazing team. We're working on the first year camping trip for any incoming first year residential students. A big staple is the first year camping trip. And this year we actually listened to our classmates who said that last year's dates were not really conducive of getting ready for the school year. So we're bumping it up a week this year to really support the incoming class. That way you'll have no competing priorities, no worries about prepping for your first day of class. It'll be the 7th to the 9th of August. So we're very much in the planning process for that. And it's going to be an amazing weekend and a kickoff to the school year.
What if somebody has not camped very much? Those folks still encouraged to join for the camping trip?
They are. There's indoor lodging opportunities. There are, and it's really not terribly rugged. It's as rugged as you choose to make it. It's much more of a social hangout opportunity. It's in a beautiful camping ground and facility called Wilderness Adventures. School has partnered with them for numerous years, and we'll have catered food. We're not eating space food or camping, true camping food. But it's just in a very scenic area. There's a lazy river float is a big tradition. There will be, cornhole and games and field games. There's the river runs right through the campground. Like I said, there's indoor lodging opportunities for whoever, would prefer to sleep inside, in a cabin-like structure on a bed. And it's only an hour away. So, if for some reason someone was I couldn't imagine someone really being uncomfortable, but you have the option to, it's very easily accessible. So that.
Well, Andrew, what are you looking forward to in the coming months? Obviously, a camping trip, entrepreneurship. Anything else that you'd want to mention here that's on your horizon?
I am. I mean, a ton of, I say professionally, on top of our business pursuits. My brother and I we're very eagerly learning about real estate and real estate. I've done a little bit of real estate investing in the past, and I just think it's another way. It's a great investment, but I also think it's another great way to take care of people as a property manager and as an owner. And I've really enjoyed taking care of my tenants. So my brother and I are joining forces, and we're looking for multiplexes in the DC area, as well as in the Charleston area where our parents have just relocated. So I just think property management's fantastic, and we'll spend some of our free time in the evenings doing that and working on our next acquisition. I have some time with my family, and also my girlfriend's family, who I met here. She's a classmate, and I'm just excited to see her hometown for the first time, and to really spend some quality time with my family as well. And I selfishly, I will say there is one trip I am looking forward to. I'm going to head out. I'm going to use my one real trip this summer. I'm headed out to California to climb Mount Whitney, which is the tallest mountain in the lower 48, the contiguous United States, and doing it with an amazing friend who his mission is to climb all the 14,000 and above foot mountains in the country. They're primarily in Colorado, and he recently completed all of those. He's a Colorado resident, and I remember running out of class here at Darden the day he climbed the 58th, the final 14er. And now he just has a few more in California to complete every 14,000 foot mountain. So I'm going to go keep him safe, keep him company on a pretty tough climb out in California. And we're going to go stop in Yosemite as well beforehand. So I'm very fortunate. It's going to be a great summer, some time with family, some time with my girlfriend and friends, and then, a little bit of climbing here or there just to stay sharp.
I love that. Yosemite is amazing, incredible place. Mount Whitney as the climb, it's hard. It's a very difficult climb.
Of course, we're choosing to make it a little harder than it has to be. So I have summited Mount Whitney before, but we're choosing the Mountaineers route, which just offers the opportunity to really test and practice some skills, some rope skills and some safety skills. Putting in our own protection systems to ensure that in the event of a fall, it's really not that bad. You have your helmet on, and that should be all you need if we do everything correctly, which, I'm very fortunate. This climbing teammate of mine, we've always, really had each other's back and taken safety very, very seriously. But it's an opportunity to, not just be on our feet hiking. There is a walkable path to the summit, but to get to use all the skills we've honed and developed over the years, and to stand at 14,500 feet. And it's just a beautiful day. It's in Sequoia National Park. Excuse me. And it'll be fantastic.
Well, Andrew, this is the most we've ever talked about climbing on the podcast. So it's such an interesting conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your story with our listeners. It's been a great conversation, and good luck with your venture this summer, and I should say all your ventures and your climbing.
Thank you. No, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, anyway, I mean, another reason, I joined the DOC board and have gotten involved in some other areas and some other clubs, and, just immediately accepting the opportunity to join you today on this podcast this is an amazing community. I really feel appreciative for everything that's taken place this first year. And there's just been a lot of amazing surprises along the way. And I cannot encourage, anyone listening to this podcast enough to really, not just give Darden a thought, but make it your priority. That was advice that was given to me, and it's been, some of the best advice that I've ever received, because this is it's been a fantastic journey so far.
Thank you, Andrew. Great speaking with you today, and good luck this summer.
Thank you so much, Brett. Appreciate it.
And that was my conversation with Andrew Katz, a first-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2027. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.